The Corvani ships came from deep space like a storm of metal and death. They were huge, each one bigger than a small moon. Their black hulls reflected no light, and their weapons could turn entire planets into dust. For 3 years, they had moved across the galaxy, destroying everything in their path. No one could stop them. The Zephyrian Federation had the best technology in known space. They built shields that could stop stars from exploding. Their weapons could cut through anything. It did not matter. The Corvani crushed them in 6 months. The proud warriors of Thorgrim fought with honor and strength. They lasted 3 weeks. The peaceful water worlds of the Aquarian colonies tried to hide in the deep ocean trenches of their planets. The Corvani found them anyway and boiled their seas. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the USS Defiance. He was 45 years old and had gray in his hair from too many battles. His uniform was clean but worn. The buttons were polished, but the fabric showed signs of long service. Jack had commanded ships for 20 years. He knew the difference between a fight you could win and a fight you could not. This looked like the second kind. The bridge around him buzzed with quiet activity. Men and women worked at their stations, checking weapons, scanning space, and trying to make sense of the reports that came in every few minutes. Each report was worse than the last. Another human colony was gone. Another defense fleet was destroyed. Another world was burning. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan sat at the communications station. She was 28 years old with red hair tied back in a tight bun. Her hands moved quickly over the controls as she tried to reach the outer colonies. Most of the time, she got only static. When she did reach someone, the news was always bad. "Admiral," Kate said, turning in her chair. Her face was pale. "I just lost contact with Titan Station. Long-range sensors show nothing where the orbital platform used to be. Just debris and radiation." Jack nodded slowly. Titan Station had been one of their strongest defenses. It carried enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. The Corvani had swept it aside like it was nothing. "Any word from the civilian transports that were docked there?" Kate shook her head. "No, sir. No survivors detected." Captain Ryan Hughes looked up from the tactical display. He was Jack's second in command, a man in his 30s with sharp eyes and steady hands. Ryan had been with Jack for 5 years. They trusted each other completely. "Admiral, the pattern is clear. The Corvani are moving straight for Earth. They are not stopping to occupy worlds or take prisoners. They just destroy everything and keep moving." The holographic display showed the enemy advance like a red wave washing across the galaxy. Each red dot represented a Corvani ship. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The blue dots that showed human forces were scattered and few. Many were already gray, marking ships and stations that had been destroyed. "How long until they reach Earth?" Jack asked. Ryan worked at his console for a moment. "At their current speed, 72 hours. Maybe less if they don't stop to finish off the remaining outer colonies." Jack felt cold. 72 hours. 3 days. That was not enough time to evacuate Earth. It was not enough time to build new defenses. It was barely enough time to say goodbye. Dr. Lisa Chang approached the command area. She was the chief scientist on the Defiance, a woman in her early 40s who understood things about physics and space that most people could not even imagine. Lisa had designed many of the experimental systems that made the Defiance special. Her work had pushed human technology forward by decades. "Admiral," Lisa said, "I have been studying the data from our encounters with the Corvani. There might be something we missed. Something important." Jack turned to face her. Lisa looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes showed she had not slept. Much in the past few days, none of them had. "What kind of something?" "Their technology is different from anything we have seen. More advanced, yes, but also more connected. All their ships seem to work together in ways that should not be possible. They coordinate attacks across thousands of kilometers of space with no delay. They share information instantly. It is like they are all part of one giant machine." Ryan frowned. "That would give them a huge advantage in battle. Perfect coordination means no wasted shots, no friendly fire, no confusion." "Exactly," Lisa said. "But it might also be a weakness. Any system that connected would have vulnerabilities." If we could find the right frequency, the right approach, we might be able to disrupt their entire network. Jack felt a spark of hope, but he kept his expression calm. Hope could be dangerous. It could make you take risks that got people killed. How long would you need to figure out if this is possible? Give me access to all the sensor data from every encounter we have had with them. Let me work with Ben Parker and his engineering team. Maybe 12 hours to know if there's anything there. Commander Ben Parker was the chief engineer. He was a practical man who could fix anything and build things that should not work but somehow did. If Lisa needed someone to turn theory into reality, Ben was the right choice. Do it, Jack said. Kate, send a message to all remaining fleet units. Tell them to transmit all sensor data on Corvani technology to us immediately. Highest priority. Yes, sir, Kate replied, her fingers already moving across her controls. Jack walked to the main view screen that showed the stars ahead of them. Somewhere out there, the Corvani fleet was moving toward Earth like a tide of destruction. They had crushed every world in their path. Entire civilizations had fallen before them. Billions had died. But they had never faced humans before. And humans had a reputation for doing impossible things when their backs were against the wall. Dr. Lisa Chang had not slept in 18 hours. Her lab deep inside the USS Defiance looked like a hurricane had hit it. Computer screens covered every wall, showing wave patterns, energy readings, and alien code that hurt to look at. Empty coffee, cups and food containers were scattered across the tables. Lisa sat in the middle of it all, her eyes red from staring at data that might save humanity. Commander Ben Parker walked into the lab carrying a fresh pot of coffee and 2 clean cups. Ben was a big man with oil stains on his uniform and tools hanging from his belt. He had spent the last day crawling through the ship's engine rooms, checking every system twice. You look like hell, Lisa. I feel worse than I look, Lisa replied, not taking her eyes off the screen in front of her. But I think I found something. Look at this. She pointed to a series of wave patterns that looked like mountains and valleys drawn in light. These are energy readings from the Corvani ships during their attack on the Mars orbital stations. See how the waves all move together? They rise and fall at exactly the same time. Ben poured coffee for both of them and studied the display. He was not a scientist like Lisa, but he understood machines and how they worked. That is not normal. Energy patterns should be random, or at least slightly different between ships. Exactly. Now look at this. Lisa switched to another screen. This one showed similar patterns from a battle near Jupiter 3 weeks ago. Same thing, perfect coordination. But here is the interesting part. She highlighted a section where the waves suddenly changed. Right here, one of the Corvani ships was damaged by our weapons. Watch what happens. The wave pattern from the damaged ship became chaotic, but the other ships immediately adjusted their patterns to match. It was like watching a group of dancers instantly change their routine when one of them stumbled. They are all connected, Ben said slowly. Some kind of network that lets them share information instantly. More than information, Lisa said. I think they share consciousness. Each ship is like a finger on a hand. Cut off one finger and the hand still works. But it has to adapt. Ben sat down heavily in a chair that creaked under his weight. That would explain how they coordinate so well. But Lisa, if they are all connected like that, how do we fight them? It would be like fighting one giant enemy instead of hundreds of separate ships. Lisa smiled for the first time in days. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had found a weapon hidden in the dark. Ben, what happens to a network when you overload it? It crashes, Ben said immediately. Then his eyes went wide. You think we can crash their network? I think we can do more than that. Look at these frequency patterns. Lisa brought up a new display that showed the Corvani communication signals as colors flowing back and forth between ships. They use quantum entanglement to maintain their connection. Every ship is linked to every other ship through quantum particles that exist in multiple places at once. Ben scratched his head. The science was getting complicated, but he could see where Lisa was going. So if we could mess with those quantum particles somehow, we could disrupt the entire network. maybe permanently. Lisa stood up and paced to another console. The Defiance has an experimental quantum resonance cannon. It was designed for mining operations in deep space, but if we modified it, if we tuned it to the right frequency, we could turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness, Ben finished. They worked together for the next 6 hours. Lisa calculated frequencies and wave patterns while Ben figured out how to modify the quantum cannon. It was dangerous work. The cannon had never been tested at full power, and the modifications they were planning would push it far beyond its design limits. Lieutenant Commander Amy Watson joined them in the late afternoon. Amy was the ship's weapons specialist, a woman in her 30s who could make any gun shoot straighter and hit harder. She looked at their plans and whistled softly. "This is crazy," Amy said. "You want to overload the quantum cannon channel, all the ship's power through it, and fire it at a specific frequency that might disrupt alien technology we barely understand." "That is about right," Lisa said. "And if it does not work, then we die and Earth falls to the Corvani in 60 hours. Amy nodded slowly. "And if it does work?" Ben and Lisa looked at each other. They had been avoiding this part of the conversation. "If it works," Ben said quietly, "the power requirements will destroy the ship. We would need to channel energy from all 3 fusion reactors through systems that were never meant to handle that much power. The quantum cannon would fire once," Lisa added. "Then the ship would tear itself apart from the inside. We would have maybe 5 minutes from the moment we start the overload sequence until total system failure." Amy was quiet for a long moment. Outside the lab, they could hear the normal sounds of a ship in space, the hum of the life support systems, the distant vibration of the engines, the quiet conversations of crew members going about their duties. All of it would be gone in 60 hours if they did nothing. "How close would we need to get to their command ship?" Amy asked. "Close," Lisa said. "The quantum disruption effect would spread through their network. But we need to be close enough to the source to make sure it takes hold, maybe 10,000 kilometers. That means flying straight into the middle of their fleet," Amy said, "past hundreds of ships that will be shooting at us." "Yes." Amy picked up one of the technical drawings and studied it. "Can we make the ship fast enough and tough enough to survive the approach?" Ben thought about it. "I can push the engines past their safety limits, overload the shields, strip out everything that is not essential, and use the extra power for speed and defense. But Amy, even if we make it through their fleet, even if the weapon works perfectly, we are not coming home." Amy set down the drawing and looked at both of them. "How sure are you that this will work?" Lisa and Ben exchanged glances again. "Maybe 70%, Lisa said. "The theory is sound, but we are making a lot of assumptions about alien technology." 70%, Amy repeated. "Those are not great odds." "They are better than the odds of stopping the Corvani any other way," Ben said. Amy was quiet again. Then she picked up the technical drawings and headed for the door. "I will talk to the Admiral. If we are going to do this, we need to start modifications immediately," and Amy turned back to face them. "For what it is worth, I think you two might have just saved humanity." After she left, Lisa and Ben sat in the quiet lab surrounded by their calculations and plans. They had found a way to fight the unstoppable enemy, but the price would be everything they had. Admiral Jack Morrison stood in the main conference room of the USS Defiance. Through the large viewport, he could see distant flashes of light where the Corvani fleet was destroying the outer defense stations around Pluto. Each flash meant hundreds of human lives lost. Each flash brought the enemy closer to Earth. The senior staff sat around the metal table in the center of the room. Dr. Lisa Chang had dark circles under her eyes, but her voice was steady as she explained their discovery. Commander Ben Parker nodded along, occasionally adding technical details that made the plan sound even more dangerous. Lieutenant Commander Amy Watson had run battle simulations all night, and her results were not encouraging. "So let me understand this correctly," Jack said when Lisa finished talking. "You want to fly this ship directly into the middle of the largest enemy fleet in history, get close enough to their command ship to shake hands with them, and then fire an experimental weapon that will destroy our own ship in the process." "That sums it up, sir," Lisa said. Captain Ryan Hughes leaned forward in his chair. He had been quiet during the briefing, studying the tactical displays on his tablet. Admiral, I have run every simulation I can think of. The Corvani fleet has over 200 ships arranged in a perfect defensive formation. Their command ship sits in the center, protected by rings of smaller vessels. Even if we strip everything from the Defiance and put all power into speed and shields, our chances of reaching the target are less than 10%. And that assumes they do not adapt to our approach, Amy added. The Corvani learn from every battle. They might change their formation or deploy new weapons we have not seen before. Jack walked to the viewport and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth waited. 3 billion people going about their daily lives, not knowing that their entire species might be extinct in 2 days. Children playing in parks. Families eating dinner together. People falling in love and making plans for the future. What are our other options? He asked without turning around. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Ryan spoke. There are none, sir. Every other human fleet has been destroyed or scattered. The orbital defense platforms around Earth might delay the Corvani for a few hours, but they cannot stop them. This is humanity's last chance. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan had been monitoring communications throughout the meeting. Her console beeped, softly, and she looked at the incoming message with growing alarm. Admiral, I am receiving an emergency transmission from Earth Command. The Corvani advanced scouts have reached the asteroid belt. They are moving faster than we expected. How much time do we have? Jack asked. Kate worked quickly at her console, cross-referencing the enemy position with their known speed. 48 hours until they reach Earth, sir. Maybe less. Jack closed his eyes for a moment. 48 hours. 2 days. The timeline had just gotten worse. He turned back to face his crew. These were good people. The best humanity had to offer. They deserved better than a suicide mission with impossible odds. I want everyone to understand what we are talking about here, Jack said slowly. If we do this, none of us are going home. We will die in the attempt and there is no guarantee it will work. I will not order anyone to stay. Any crew member who wants to transfer to an escape pod can do so with no shame and no questions asked. Ben Parker was the first to speak. Admiral, I helped design this ship. Every rivet, every wire, every system. If she is going to make one last run, I want to be here to make sure she performs perfectly. Amy Watson nodded. My job is to make our weapons work when we need them most. I have never had a more important target. Dr. Chang stood up from her chair. This is my plan, my theory, my responsibility. I will see it through to the end. Ryan looked around the table at his fellow officers. I have served with all of you for years. We are a team. Teams stick together. Kate turned from her communication station. Sir, I just received personal messages from over 300 crew members volunteering for this mission. Word has spread through the ship. Everyone wants to stay. Jack felt something tight in his chest. Pride, maybe, or sorrow. He had commanded many ships and many crews, but never one like this. Very well. Ben, how long do you need to modify the quantum cannon? 18 hours if we work around the clock, Ben replied. I will need to pull people from every department, but we can do it. Amy, work with Ben on the weapons modifications. Ryan, I want you to plan our approach route. Use every asteroid, every piece of debris, every sensor shadow you can find. Lisa, keep working on the quantum frequency calculations. The more precise we can make this, the better our chances. What about the crew? Kate asked. Jack was quiet for a moment. This was the hardest part of command, the part they never taught, you in the academy. Everyone gets to write one letter home, one message to family, friends, whoever matters most. Kate, I want you to set up a special communication beacon, something that will broadcast our final messages after we are gone. The meeting broke up as each officer headed to their duties. Jack remained in the conference room alone, staring out at the stars. In 18 hours, they would begin their final approach. In 2 days, it would all be over. He sat down at the table and activated a small recorder. Message for Admiral Sarah Morrison, Defense Command Earth. Sarah, by the time you hear this, the mission will be complete one way or another. I want you to know that every person on this ship chose to be here. We go into this fight knowing the cost, and we go willingly." Jack paused, thinking of his sister back on Earth. She would understand. She was a soldier too. Tell the families that their loved ones died as heroes. Tell the children that freedom is never free. And Sarah, if this works, if humanity survives, make sure they remember what happened here. Make sure they remember the price. He stopped the recording and sealed it with the others that would be transmitted when the time came. Outside the viewport, another defense station died in a flash of light. The Corvani were coming and time was running out. The USS Defiance moved through the asteroid field like a ghost hunting prey. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge watching the tactical display as his ship crept closer to the Corvani fleet. 18 hours of constant work had transformed the vessel into something new. Extra armor plating covered the hull. The quantum cannon now ran through the center of the ship like a metal spine. Every system had been pushed beyond safe limits. Commander Ben Parker had worked miracles in the engine room. The fusion reactors now produced 30% more power than their design allowed. The extra energy fed into shields that glowed with barely contained force. Heat sensors throughout the ship showed red warnings, but the systems held together, through engineering skill and desperate hope. "Distance to target?" Jack asked quietly. Captain Ryan Hughes checked his instruments. 50,000 kilometers and closing. "We are still hidden in the asteroid shadows, but that will not last much longer." The Corvani fleet spread out before them like a wall of black metal. Each ship was massive, their hulls reflecting no light from the distant sun. They moved in perfect formation, as if controlled by a single mind. At the center of the formation sat their command ship, a mountain of alien technology that dwarfed everything around it. Dr. Lisa Chang worked frantically. At her science station, banks of computers showed wave patterns and energy readings that changed every few seconds. "Admiral, I am reading massive power buildup from the Corvani ships. They are charging their main weapons." "Target?" Jack asked. "Earth, sir." "They are, preparing to fire on the planet from extreme range." Jack felt ice in his stomach. The plan had been to intercept the fleet before it reached Earth, but if the Corvani could destroy the planet from this distance, time had just run out. "How long until they fire?" Lisa worked quickly at her controls. 12 minutes, maybe less." "Ben, I need everything you can give me," Jack said into his communicator. Ben's voice came back immediately. "Reactors at maximum output, Admiral. Shields are holding, but the heat buildup is getting dangerous. We have maybe 10 minutes before something critical fails." Lieutenant Commander Amy Watson looked up from the weapons console. "Quantum cannon is charged and ready. But Admiral, we are still too far away. At this range, the disruption effect might not cascade through their entire network." Jack stared at the tactical display. 50,000 kilometers. They needed to be within 10,000 to guarantee the weapon would work. At their current speed, it would take 8 minutes to close the distance. The Corvani would detect them long before that and bring hundreds of weapons to bear on the Defiance. "New plan," Jack said. "Ryan, plot a direct course to the command ship. Maximum speed. Forget stealth. Amy, prepare to fire everything we have at their escort vessels. We punch through their defenses and get close enough to use the quantum cannon." "Sir, that is suicide," Ryan said. "They will tear us apart before we get halfway there." "They are going to destroy Earth in 12 minutes, Jack replied. "This is our only chance." The USS Defiance burst from the asteroid field like a rocket launched from hell. Immediately, alarms began sounding throughout the Corvani fleet. The massive alien ships turned toward the lone human vessel, their weapons beginning to charge. "All power to forward shields," Jack ordered. "Ben, give me everything the engines have." The first Corvani shots reached them at 40,000 kilometers. Beams of energy that could melt mountains struck the Defiance's shields and turned space around the ship into a brilliant fireworks display. The ship shuddered under impacts that would have vaporized any other human vessel. Amy fired back with conventional weapons, targeting the nearest Corvani escorts. The human missiles and energy beams looked pitiful against the massive alien ships, but they served their purpose. Each hit forced the enemy to adjust their aim slightly, buying precious seconds. "Shields down to 60%, reported Lieutenant Kate Sullivan from her station. Hull temperature rising fast, 30,000 kilometers. The Corvani formation began to shift, ships moving to block the Defiance's path to their command vessel. More weapons opened fire, turning the space around the human ship into a storm of deadly energy. "Direct hit on Section 7, Kate called. "Out. We have fires on 3 decks. Damage control teams responding. 20,000 kilometers. The Defiance flew through a cloud of Corvani fire that should have destroyed it 10 times over. The experimental shields flared white-hot but held together through desperate engineering and luck." Ben's voice came over the intercom, shouting over alarms and explosions. "Reactor 3 is failing. I am shutting it down before it takes the whole ship with it. We are down to 2/3 power." "How much longer can the shields hold?" Jack asked. "Maybe 2 minutes at this rate of fire. 15,000 kilometers. The Corvani command ship loomed ahead of them like a metal planet. Its own weapons were charging now, building to energy levels that would reduce the Defiance to atoms. Jack could see the glow of the alien weapon systems through the view screen. "Lisa, how close do we need to be?" he asked. 12,000 kilometers for guaranteed effect," she replied. "But Admiral, I think I can boost the quantum resonance if we get to 10,000. That would make sure the cascade effect reaches every ship in their fleet. 10,000 kilometers, they were not going to make it. The Corvani fire was too heavy, their ship too damaged. But they had to try." "Amy, prepare to fire the quantum cannon the moment we reach range," Jack ordered. "Sir, the weapon is not fully charged yet. We need another 90 seconds. "We do not have 90 seconds. 12,000 kilometers. The Defiance's shields finally failed under the continuous bombardment. Enemy fire began striking the hull directly, tearing through armor that had been designed to stop anything short of a direct nuclear hit. "Hull breach on Deck 5, Kate reported. "We are losing atmosphere fast. 11,000 kilometers. An explosion rocked the ship as one of the Corvani beams found a weak spot in the armor. Half the bridge lights went out and smoke filled the air. "Quantum cannon at 80% charge," Amy called out. 10,500 kilometers. The Corvani command ship's main weapon reached full charge. Jack could see it through the smoke and sparks, a ball of energy that would end everything. "Fire now," Jack shouted. Amy slammed her fist down on the firing control. The quantum resonance. Cannon discharged with a sound like reality being torn in half. A beam of pure quantum energy lanced out from the dying human ship and struck the heart of the Corvani command vessel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lights on the alien ship began to flicker. The quantum beam struck the Corvani command ship and something impossible happened. The lights on the massive alien vessel began to flicker like candles in the wind. Admiral Jack Morrison watched through the smoke-filled bridge of the USS Defiance as the enemy weapon that had been charging to destroy Earth suddenly went dark. "It's working," Dr. Lisa Chang whispered from her science station. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead, but her eyes were fixed on the readings. "The quantum disruption is spreading through their network." The effect moved like lightning jumping between metal rods. One by one, the Corvani ships began to lose power. Their weapons went silent. Their engines died. Their shields collapsed. Ships that had crushed entire worlds drifted helplessly in space as their quantum network failed. "My God," Lieutenant Kate Sullivan said, staring at her communications display. "The entire fleet is going dark. Every ship is losing power." Captain Ryan Hughes worked frantically at his tactical station despite the sparks flying from damaged circuits. "Admiral, I count 237 Corvani vessels, all showing 0 power output. They are completely dead." Jack felt a moment of pure joy. They had done it. Against impossible odds, with a plan that should never have worked. They had stopped the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Earth was safe. Humanity would survive. Then the USS Defiance began to tear itself apart. The quantum cannon had drawn power from every system on the ship. The fusion reactors, pushed far beyond their limits, started to fail in cascade. Commander Ben Parker's voice came over the intercom, barely audible through the noise of collapsing machinery. "Admiral, Reactor 2 just went critical. I am trying to shut it down, but the containment field is failing. We have maybe 5 minutes before the whole power core goes up. Explosions echoed through the ship as overloaded systems burned out. The lights on the bridge flickered and went out, leaving only the red glow of emergency power. The deck plates buckled under Jack's feet as structural supports failed throughout the vessel. Hull integrity failing on all decks, Kate reported. We are losing atmosphere everywhere. Emergency bulkheads are sealing, but it won't hold for long. Dr. Chang looked up from her console, which was now showing only static and error messages. Admiral, the quantum pulse worked perfectly. The disruption has spread through the entire Corvani network in this system. But sir, there are other fleets. Other worlds they have conquered. This was just one battle group. Jack nodded. He had known this was not the end of the war, just the end of this battle. But it was enough. They had proven that the Corvani could be beaten. They had bought humanity time to prepare, to build new weapons, to spread word of the quantum disruption technique throughout the galaxy. Ben, how long do we have? Jack asked into his communicator. The response came through heavy static. 3 minutes, maybe 4. The reactor containment is completely gone. Admiral, it has been an honor serving with you. Jack activated the ship-wide communication system one last time. Crew of the USS Defiance, this is your Admiral speaking. Today we proved that no enemy is unstoppable. We proved that humanity will never surrender. Earth is safe because of your courage. The galaxy will remember what we did here. Lieutenant Commander Amy Watson stood up from her weapons console and saluted. Sir, quantum cannon fired successfully. Target destroyed. Mission accomplished. Kate turned from her station. Admiral, I have an incoming transmission from Earth. Fleet Command wants to know our status. Tell them the Corvani invasion fleet has been stopped, Jack said. Tell them the quantum disruption weapon works. And tell them to honor the crew of this ship. The USS Defiance shuddered as another explosion tore through the engineering section. Through the view screen, Jack could see pieces of the hull spinning away into space. The ship that had been humanity's finest achievement was dying around them. Ryan checked his instruments one final time. Admiral, long-range sensors confirm the quantum effect is stable. The Corvani ships show no signs of recovering power. They are finished. Dr. Chang managed a weak smile. The cascade worked better than I hoped. The disruption has locked their quantum entanglement permanently. Even if they have repair crews, they cannot fix this kind of damage. Jack walked to the main view screen and looked out at the dead Corvani fleet. Hundreds of ships that had destroyed civilizations now floated, dark and silent. Never again would they bring death to innocent worlds. Never again would they crush planets under their advance. Kate, he said quietly, transmit our final messages home. All crew letters, all technical data on the quantum weapon, everything. All ready. Done, sir. The data burst went out 2 minutes ago. Another massive explosion shook the ship. The artificial gravity failed and everyone floated free in the red emergency lighting. Through the deck, they could hear the sound of metal tearing as the Defiance broke apart from the inside. Jack floated next to the command chair he would never sit in again. It has been my privilege to serve with all of you. History will remember the USS Defiance and her crew. We came here to stop an enemy that had never been stopped. We came here to save our world. Mission accomplished. The ship's computer voice echoed through the dying vessel. Warning, core breach imminent. All hands abandon ship, all hands abandon ship. But there were no escape pods left, no way home. They had used everything in their desperate attack on the enemy fleet. Jack and his crew floated in the red darkness, watching through the broken view screen as Earth's sun shone in the distance. Kate's voice was calm in the final moments. Admiral, I have confirmation from Earth. They received our data transmission. The quantum weapon specifications are being sent to every human colony and ship in space. Good, Jack said. Then our job is done. The USS Defiance died in a flash of light that briefly outshone the sun. But the quantum disruption field remained, stable, keeping the Corvani fleet powerless. Earth was safe. Humanity would fight on. And across the galaxy, other species would learn that even the most powerful enemy could be defeated by courage, sacrifice, and the refusal to surrender. The crew of the USS Defiance had paid the ultimate price for victory. But they had proven something that would echo through history. They had shown that some things were worth dying for, and that the human spirit could never be crushed.